Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Vanquish playthrough. It's time to start the final act of the game with Act 5, Mission 1, Denouement. Which it's a word that I absolutely adore. I mean, essentially, the denouement of anything is the final part of a play, film, or narrative in which strands of the plot are drawn together and matters are explained or resolved. Generally, the denouement comes after the climax, but considering it's the general finale, it works quite well. Obviously, we've seen that Burns and Elizabeth Winters are not all they're cracked up to be.
Hold on. Scanners are showing Burns isn't alone. Maybe he's linking up with some reinforcements.
Even though he locked everyone out?
It is rather strange.
Well, I'm gonna worry about the devils we know. The RIs from here on out aren't gonna give us a free ride.
You're right.
So, this mission is going to be dealing with quite a lot of RIs. So we've got the Buzzard, we've got loads of Romanovs. It's all quite chaotic. This is easily one of the most difficult general firefights in the game, because you are dealing with a lot of powerful enemies in one area, so you have just got to be careful. I'm pretty sure that you can't actually hurt the Buzzard for the first bit of this mission, but once you have dealt with the key issues, i.e. the Gorgies, the Romanovs, you can begin to move around the side to get to the Gatling guns, and then you're going to be able to use them to cause mass damage. And you may be looking at this part and thinking, ooh, it's a little bit short, isn't it? Well, you're basically looking at the one mission, really. Because Act 5 only has 3 missions, but they are all very fun, very challenging, and there is going to be a lot of plots. And speaking of the plots, and seeing as we've had quite a few cutscenes going on, let's talk about the cutscenes from the blog, because while I'm probably not going to make it through everything, because there's been quite a few, parts where I've just been talking about other stuff, so these things happen, where you've got other focuses and you just end up going to different things, but I think we should probably talk about the cutscenes, because we're also going to be seeing quite a few of them in the near future as well. So, this blog post was written by Kunihiko Suda, who was in charge of creating the cutscenes for Vanquish. With a game that's as speedy and well-paced as Vanquish, they had to make sure that the cutscenes didn't bring down the tempo of the experience. Normally, cutscenes take a game's script and expand upon them with direction and ideas. With Vanquish, the focus was on 2 main types of scenes. The areas where we wanted to show incredibly explosive shots, like the action scenes in the opening, and scenes where they needed to push the game forward through exposition. Ultimately, there was a good variety in the scenes when you looked at the total volume of what was created. With the latter, they avoided putting in unnecessary action and tried to make things simple. In some respects, it would seem like they were taking it easy, but that wasn't the case at all. They wanted to make sure that the cutscenes weren't too long by having the cuts change at the right time and avoiding pointless gaps. They paid attention so that they still had nice pacing and that the cutscene seemed dense with information to take in. For many reasons, such as not wanting to include any pointless cutscenes, and keeping the in-game experience compelling, by including lots of scenes playable in gameplay, a good number of scenes were cut from the game. now that they've got the chance, one of those cut movies is actually available on the blog. It's also on YouTube if you want to have a look. And you can actually compare that to what made it into the game. So when you fight the Argus for the first time, that's when this particular cutscene was going to be used. Since there were quite a few cutscenes in that part of the game, that particular scene was just rather, well, it felt subdued, and they felt it determined that it was slowed down the game, and that it did little to make the game feel alive, so they cut it. And then there's another scene that was originally going to take place when you exited the tunnel in Act 1. However, once out of the tunnel, the movie was simply too long, and moving it to gameplay was the best way to make the game feel alive, so it ultimately got cut. So there was a very fine balance at play on the pacing of the game, and I think for the most part they did get it spot on. I wouldn't say... well, so the pacing is perfect for anybody who wants to jump in and just charge through the game. That's all great. The one issue I have with the pacing doesn't come from the actual pacing of the narrative. That's fine. The pacing comes in terms of the way all of the levels are split up for me. I think that is mostly because it causes issues when recording and trying to create a nice smooth run, because you've not really got any neat cutting points. As you can see, I've tried my best when it comes to ending parts, and if there have been any deaths that I've had to try and just scoot under the carpet as much as possible, I've tried. But the game doesn't have those neat points. If you look at the likes of Bayonetta or The Wonderful 101, they are very much more contained in their chapters and operations. Obviously, when you're within those chapters and operations, they're a little bit, well, they're a lot more fluid. But even though they are split up, the flow works better because chapters and missions end when it feels right for them to do so. Whereas I would say that in Vanquish, it's not always quite the case. Sometimes everything is sometimes quite a little bit too short, or is not... it's difficult to explain, really. But, I mean, for the most part, I would say that Vanquish has excellent pacing, but it is just that whole recording element that's the problem. And I was so very, very, very lucky with that EMP emitter, because that was not going to end well for me, I suspect. But either way, once you have gotten to this bit, we can plant the other bomb, and then we just need to get the hell out of Dodge. Which you can do by getting into this area here, which gives us some extra weapons. It gives us a Gatling gun, and that's going to be very, very, very helpful for what we are about to face, because now that we have gotten into this position, we now have to defend it. Which is actually a really nice way of going about it, if you... well... just because it's really fun and you're in a pretty safe location. Like, the enemies really, really, really struggle to do any damage to you when you are here. And I mean, if you make the most of your rocket launchers, they're really not going to stand much of a chance. I mean, even when you're dealing with the Romanovs, they don't try and hurt you up here. You're probably better off going for the Gatling gun, because you know that means that you can take these guys down a hell of a lot quicker. But it's still going to go pretty quickly as a mission, so... And we are right at the end, so... It's really not that much of a problem. I mean, even these guys who can fly, they really don't care about us. It's because we're all the way up here. So they spend all their time focusing on the Marines, and really, that's the biggest mistake they could have possibly made.
Get out of the way.
I think we're clear.
And there we go.
In front of the door on the second floor. Once the area's clear, I'll open it up.
So now we just have to wait, which is a little bit frustrating, but thankfully they did decide to get their asses in gear and move up here pronto. But seeing as we have a little bit of time, I thought let's just go and have a look at that extra weapon thing, see if there's anything that we can or want to gain access to, and we had that, so it was worth taking.
You know this part of the colony, Grossi?
Yeah, but I have no idea what it's like now.
Better than nothing. Elena, do you have any idea on force strength?
Sam, the electromagnetic interference is building up. I'm not sure how much longer I can provide op support.
Not a good time to be saying that.
I'll do what I can to keep you apprised.
I'm counting on it.
So, as we climb these ominous stairs,
Lock and load. We might have enemies.
we are getting close to our final challenge.
Open her up. Hoorah!
Or at least our final few challenges anyway. So, we've got a few relatively easy Gorgies, I really don't care at this point. But, if we move a little bit further in, we get another Crystal Viper to deal with. Now this is definitely a more frustrating version of the fight, because you know, you've got all of these things around you which are getting in the way of getting out of the way. But really, for all the threat this guy provides, I've never found him difficult. It's just a case of absolutely throttling him with bullets. This particular guy is a bit more challenging because he can vanish from... Well, he can completely vanish and then reappear. So as long as you're dodging, you should be fine. If that X ever turns up, press it, because then you'll enter into a quick time event, at which point you can really seriously damage the guy. So it's worth getting that quick time event if you can, but there we go, he's down and out. And so the mission is over, and it's time to head through the door and see what awaits. Things are about to hit the fan well and truly. Oh.